everyone to Just Onside. I am your host, Ahmed Badio Baghdadi, and I don't have any smart introductions this week, so that's Ayub Patel and that's Uwais Ahmed. Thank you for joining, gents.
Thank you very much. Good to be back. Looking forward to this show. Doing well. How are you doing, Ayub?
I don't know. I keep on thinking it's a nightmare that I'm going to wake up from, but we'll probably touch upon it in a few days' time.
Yeah, a few days because we are not touching that nightmare today. Today we're doing something different, gents. We are going to delve into the team of the season. Team of the season. So we're going to give the viewers who we think have been the best players in their respective positions. We align on some of them, and we don't align on quite a few of them. So it'll be quite interesting to see how it pans out in the end. But before we do get to that, we're going to go over individual honors. So we are first starting with the signing of the season. So who do we think has been the signing of the season? Now you got to take into account, I guess, price, consistency over the season, how available have they been, and end product. So, you know what? We'll let Ayub start this one. So, Ayub, who is your signing of the season?
My signing of the season is a Newcastle player, Mr. Isaac, who I think has been absolutely sensational. And I think for 60 million, a steal. He's produced the goods. I think he's been instrumental in Newcastle being so successful this season. So I think, without a shadow of a doubt for me, signing of the season is Mr. Isaac.
I've noticed you're a little bit in love with him these days. So fair play, fair play.
I've got
He's been good.
Newcastle colours on.
He's ready. He's ready to switch.
My allegiance is to the Toon Army now.
Uwais, your thoughts on Ayub's pick for signing of the season, and then give your own.
Yeah, I mean, Isaac, look, he's not the signing of the season for me simply because he's as good as he is, and you saw that assist against Everton. This guy is an incredibly silky striker, and I think you'll get to see a lot more of him in the coming seasons. I think he really could go strength to strength, but he's simply not played enough over the course of the season. And at 60 million, it's a hefty fee, and he started to show why he was worth 60 million. So I'm not disputing the talent, but I think for the amount that Newcastle have had to spend and the output over the course of the season, he doesn't quite cut it for me in terms of overall productivity. My signing of the season, I won't mention the notable mentions or the honourable mentions badge in case they are on your list. Maybe I can mention them after you've given yours. But for me, it's Palhinha at Fulham. 20 million. I think Fulham were not necessarily dead certs to get relegated this season, but they were definitely going to be one of the teams that were going to struggle. At least that was the narrative when they got promoted. I think he's been a fundamental reason why they've been able to kind of stave off relegation. They've never really been in that dogfight. And I think when he's not been in the team through suspension, they've missed him. I remember famously, obviously, I think he was missing for the 3-0 defeat against Arsenal at Craven Cottage, and Arsenal cut through them like a hot knife through butter. £20 million. He's number one in tackles in the Premier League, comfortably ahead of number two, which is Caicedo. Interestingly, where Caicedo is number one in fouls, Palhinha is nowhere near on that list. I think he's 27th in fouls. So he's very clean. He gives them that little bit of bite in the middle of the park. And again, I think without him, Fulham are a very, very different team. And I think there may well be a couple of big teams. I think Liverpool were rumored to be interested perhaps for next season, but I think he could definitely make a jump. But yeah, he's my signing of the season.
That's an interesting one. I don't think you'd go Palhinha with that. I thought you favoured one man very heavily. I'm pretty sure you're saving him for later. My signing of the season has to go to the man that landed in Manchester this summer. Has to go to Lisandro Martinez. What a player. And he has been fantastic for Manchester United, honestly. What he's done single-handedly, he's turned around, he's single-handedly, well, a bit harsh on Rafael Varane, but he has sorted out so many of United's issues as centre-back. And from being a man that's been told he's not tall enough to play in Premier League, everyone constantly questioning his height and his stature, and whether he could cut it. There's been no better centre back in my opinion. There's been no better centre back in the league than Lisandro Martinez. Some have been on the same level. Yeah, he's on the same level as some others. But as a signing, I think Lisandro Martinez takes it. I know most viewers probably thought we were all going to say Erling Haaland, but I'm glad we haven't actually. I'm really happy that we haven't.
Well, there's another category. You can't put him into every category.
You can't go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So taking Haaland out of the equation, I think Lisandro Martinez for me is the man.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say, it's like you said though, it's everything, isn't it? It's value, it's price, it's contribution. Yeah, Haaland, we know what he brings. I think it's a good shout with Martinez. Yeah,
I genuinely like compared to the I can't say this without swearing. Compared to the rubbish that we witnessed last season from United at centre back, gone are the days of Lindelof, Maguire, Feb. I don't want to hate on Lindelof. I think he's a terrific centre back. Unfortunately, his partnership with Maguire didn't work for many reasons. He's shown this season he's very good, but Lisandro Martinez coming in alongside Rafael Varane, I think he breathed new life into Varane as well, which was much needed. So I think for the price he came for as well, I think it was like 49, 50 million, something like that. I think he's repaid every bit of that. And it's not just his abilities, it's on the ball or defensively, it's his characteristics. On the pitch, he's a leader, he's a battler, he's a warrior. He's the kind of defender you want in your side. So yeah, he gets the nod for me. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. Any
Well, he was one of my honourable mentions. I won't mention.
Okay.
I won't mention the other one, but no, I agree with you. I think when you think back to the famous evaluation or infamous evaluation that Carragher did of him, I think, listen, normally defenders first season playing for big teams, they normally tend to not saying struggle, but it's a bit like Varane. He took a little bit of time to adapt into a new league, but he's really hit the road running. And I think a lot of United fans love his kind of aggressive style, and I think they make for a good combination in terms of he's quite aggressive, happy to be on the front foot. Varane's more controlled and let's say comfortable on the ball. Not to say Martinez isn't, but I think they just make for that.
I don't agree with that at all. Not at all.
No, but I think
Lisandro Martinez is probably the most. He's up there. He's easily the most comfortable on the ball in our defenders. Easily.
No, he is, and that's one of the reasons why. Listen, you don't play for Ajax if you're not comfortable on the ball, right? So, no, I just mean in terms of Varane's less combative. Let's say Martinez is happy to be kind of in the challenge. Yeah. So I just think they just make for a nice combo in that sense.
Can't argue with the picks at all. I mean, interesting choice, OS, but can't argue with it. I think you.
I think he's right with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the value is great. 20 million. He makes a big difference to that team. Yeah.
Any honourable mention, Ayub?
No.
I think Manuel Akanji from City deserves the biggest honourable mention because he was in line to win this award for myself, this prestigious award. I think they signed him for a snip as well, like 15 million.
15 million. And
he has been unbelievable.
And he was my other honourable mention, but there was a reason why I didn't mention it because of another subject we'll do later on. But okay, fine. Yeah, he was 15 million.
15 million. And I think he's played the most games out of all the defenders this season. Been superb wherever he's played. Moving on, gents, to the flop of the season. Now, this one is easy for me. I'm going to go ahead and get it out of my system. A certain pigeon named Richarlison is by far my flop of the season. The output Spurs put out for him, I think it was what, 60 million? I believe they paid for him.
Yeah, I think 50 million, yeah.
I think he was 60. I think he was 60.
I think it was 60, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Either way, 50, 60, he's been... his season has not panned out at all. Even Antonio Conte was taking the mick at one point just before he left the club, given he sulks a lot, but he's not actually produced anything of any significance on the pitch. I believe he's got more yellow cards for goals he celebrated that have been disallowed than he does goals this season, which is an incredible stat. He's just not produced at all. And I quite like Richarlison at Everton. And I thought when Spurs signed him, it was quite a good signing for them, even though you had Son and Kane. So his playing time was always going to be questioned. But he's played plenty games for him so far, and he's just not produced it good, especially for the money that was put out. Oh, are you with? Feel free.
Shall I go? I feel that I'm being really harsh on my pick, purely for the reason that I really don't think he's had the opportunity. But when he has had the opportunity, he's been out of his depth. He's just was never
We've got
a
the same
player.
player.
I was trying to build up, but Calvin Phillips. Calvin Phillips. I mean, I knew that. Do you know when Man City bought him, that it was going to be a tremendous waste of money because he's just not a player that really should be playing for Manchester City. So when he has played, he's been quite average, and he looks like he sticks out like a sore thumb. He just hasn't got the attributes that you need at Manchester City. So for me, it's quite straightforward and quite simple that the flop when he has played has been Calvin Phillips, and it's a shame he's not playing for Leeds because maybe if he was playing for us, would be in a slightly better position.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just run through at least what my thought process was. It sounds quite disrespectful, flop of the season, but I think we've got to look at who's been brought.
It is.
We're cut from a different cloth, clearly, Badge. But no, I went through some of the names, and I will just mention them, given that you have it. I thought Badge, good shout, Richarlison. I had him on my list simply because of the money that Spurs had spent. They expected a lot more from him. I won't mention the word that he used in that interview about how his season went, and then Conte agreed with him. But that was a funny little episode. But there were a number of players that I looked at, and again, it comes down to money spent, contribution for said team. So I looked at Cucurella, 62 million. I think he has really been exposed in a lot of games. You expected more. He looked pretty decent at Brighton. I'm not saying there's not a good player in there, but in terms of what he's contributed to Chelsea, it'll be interesting to see if he's got a future at Chelsea Football Club. I looked at Mudryk. The only reason I couldn't go there is because of January. I thought, well, I've got to be fair to him. Similar situation. I know this one sounds harsh. I don't mean it in this way, but even Fernandez, because I always look at, well, if you've spent that much money, I expect to see a little bit more quality. Now, listen, I've watched games where he does look like he just needs a bit of time. He needs a squad around him that's settled, and I think his quality will come to the fore. So I couldn't mention those two just simply because they've not had enough time. So I do want to be fair. There were others as well.
I think it's fair though, given the output, 120 million or whatever it was.
106. It's a lot of money, isn't it? And that's why. But again, he wasn't my
January,
choice.
so
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to give him a bit more time. It's probably the worst time to be coming into Chelsea. Just a lot of changes on the field, off the field. Even Lucas Paqueta, big money signing from West Ham. He started to show a little bit of quality
he's starting to come into his own a little bit.
But again, a lot of money spent for West Ham. One of the reasons why West Ham feel like they're probably in this position is because he's probably not contributed what they thought they would have, kind of for the majority of the season. Bissouma was another one, maybe just not as much money spent, but he was somebody well sought after. A lot of big clubs were thinking he could really make the difference. Again, for Spurs, he's really fallen out. Even Anthony Gordon, January signing 44.5 million, really not come to the fore for Newcastle. Again, you wonder what his future is as Newcastle continue to upgrade the squad. But again, I'm with Ayub. It was always going to be Calvin Phillips. I felt quite strongly about this as well. 42 million spent. It's supposed to go up to 45 million in add-ons. I don't think those are add-ons. I don't think those are add-ons.
And we need that 3 million.
You need that 3 million, but I don't think he's going to get the appearances, assists, or goals, or whatever it may be to get the additional 3 million. 42 million spent. He's played 102, 103 Premier League minutes for Manchester City. That's pretty much a game this entire season. Yeah, he had a shoulder injury before the World Cup. I was disappointed actually that Southgate took him to the World Cup. I feel quite strongly about this again. If you want to uphold high standards at the national team level, it's not to say you can't take players who are out of form or who are not playing. It's just that you do not want to be rewarding players who simply go to big clubs and are there simply as kind of bench fodder. To maintain high standards, you've got to, I'm not saying punish them, but it's a case of, look, I'm sorry, you're not playing enough. And I think over time, that just raises the standards because Phillips is less inclined to sit on the City bench. I think he will move on this summer. The only reason I not disagreed, I think the Richarlison pick's a good one. The reason why I didn't go with Richarlison, Badge, is I think the only thing worse than playing and not performing like Richarlison, he's got plenty of minutes. It's that Guardiola simply doesn't trust him. He's tested him in some of the cup games.
Guardiola?
Phillips, what I mean is. So what I mean is,
sorry.
yeah. So Richarlison, what I'm saying is, he's at least played a lot of minutes. He's trusted him in some games. I'm saying Guardiola's got to the point where he does not trust Calvin Phillips in any meaningful games. The odd Carabao Cup game and the odd FA Cup game, and even in those games, he's made mistakes. I think when you lose the trust of your manager, and your manager even has to call you out for being overweight, no body shaming, but those were Guardiola's words. I mean, it's been a horrendous season for him and a lost season for him as well. And I think he will move on this summer.
Oh no, agreed. He has been. I just didn't brand him as flop of the season because he genuinely hasn't played enough. I mean, I think fitness issues have been a problem, injuries have been a problem, but he has been fit and he's not being picked. So,
But that's
granted,
why
granted.
he is a flop.
That's the
Even
indictment.
when fit,
Yeah,
he's just not good enough. So in a sense, that's the biggest flop, isn't it?
and that's the indictment.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Honorable mention to Zinchenko as well.
Disagree. Fundamentally disagree.
He's very good at crying and having team huddles when he's culpable for mistakes himself. But moving on, we move to most improved player of this season, gents. Uwais, I'll let you go first on this one. Who is your most improved player of the season and why?
This is the one I felt probably more strongly about with the individual awards, only because every time I've seen this player, he's impressed me no end. And you know I like football because of the stories and the storylines and the narratives and what have you. And I really think if you look at how his career started in the Premier League to where he is right now, it's none other than Joelinton at Newcastle. And if you think about how he started, he joined in July 2019. If you remember, he was a centre forward. Newcastle were going through the doldrums. Steve Bruce, surely other managers as well. But Newcastle were a very dour team to watch, and he bore the brunt of the fans in terms of the fans' ire. He was a decent money signing as well. And I think thereafter was having, with Eddie Howe coming in, changing him to a midfielder. He's been a huge part of that team, and they've got a wonderful midfield with Bruno Guimaraes and Longstaff, and it's a midfield that works. I mean, one of his teammates could have got the award as well with Almiron, but I just think when you watch Joelinton, he looks like a totally different player, incredibly athletic. He doesn't look out of place in that team. I'm not saying he could make the step up to a big team, but I think for that team especially, I think he gives them everything. He doesn't give up on situations. He's kind of harrying from the front. Again, never gives up on any situations. He's decent technically. He's coming into his own. He's winning free kicks, penalties. He's running at defenders. Scored a goal against West Ham. Scored a goal against. I remember the West Ham goal, and there was another one recently as well, where he's, again, contributed in the final third. I love his story because he could have been one that simply just slipped away from the Premier League. And I think now he's pretty much a mainstay of that team. And when he doesn't play, they do lose some legs in that midfield. So he's one that I really like. And I'm glad it kind of worked out for him because, again, he was subject to a lot of criticism from supporters. Alan Shearer famously criticised him in one of the earlier games as well. Mm-hmm. So kind of happy for him. But I do think he's a really, really impressive player in the Premier League now.
You know what? Before you go, I have my answer's the same. Joelinton. He has been unbelievable. I can't believe what I'm seeing from him, from the player that first came, from the striker that first came even, and now he's turned into a centre midfielder that can literally, he dominates. He gets a lot, covers the entire pitch. He's a threat going forward. The man is he's stepped up massively for Newcastle. I can't really expand on everything you've said, Lewis. I think that perfectly illustrated why he's the most improved player. I think shout out from a United standpoint to Aaron Wan-Bissaka as well. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, many people thought his United career was dead in the water, but in fairness to him, you never heard any fuss from him. He just kept his head down, kept playing football. And he has improved so much this season to the point where he's now looking like number one right back at United. And Diogo Dalot, who was comfortable in that spot at the start of the season, is no longer. So fair play to him as well. But yeah, Joelinton will be my most improved player of the season.
Yeah, and just before you go, the goal I was thinking about was Spurs. I think both times against West Ham and Spurs, I'm sure the goal was the same through on goal around the keeper. So, kind of bursting through from midfield. Sorry, go on, carry on.
Can't disagree. I mean, I think a really, really good pick by both you guys. There was always a talent. I mean, there was no question Joel Linton was a talent, and it's nice to see. I think sometimes you feel for players with talent who are just not fulfilling the potential. Mine is one that was exceptional a couple of seasons ago. Last season, he was quite mediocre, and I'm absolutely delighted because he's always been one of my favourites, or at least he's been one of my favourite players for the last few seasons. Jack Grealish. Uh, Last season, it was so many people were quick to criticise. Huge price tag, lots of expectations. He just never performed. It's very, very easy, I think, to play in this Manchester City side and be overawed by, I suppose, the talent that's around you. Absolute credit to this man, Jack Grealish. I think this season he's one of the first picks now. I think he's certainly established himself. I think he's worked tremendously hard, and I think after last season, it shows a tremendous strength of character. So, without a shadow of a doubt, for me, Jack Grealish is my most improved player of the season.
No, you know what? That is a good pick, actually. That is a good pick. I really want to disagree with one of you, but so far I can't. They're all really good picks. And Jack Grealish has come to the fore this season. May at one point looked like it may not have worked out for him, but yeah, like you say, he's one of the first names on the sheet now. Him and Haaland are linking up beautifully as well. So good choice, gents. Good choice.
Yeah.
We move on. This is all nice and friendly, isn't it? We move we move on to manager of the season. Manager of the season. The floor is yours, my friend. I'll let you go first.
Mr. Edward Howe. I don't want to add to that because I think anybody who knows football will appreciate the great job that he's done because he's not. I mean, obviously they've got incredibly wealthy backers. He has bought players, but he's not bought superstars. He's made a team from, I think, very intelligent buys, and I think he's done an amazing job. I think he is one of the best coaches in England, and I think he's shown the ability that he has. He's transferred. I mean, you talked about Joe Linton. You've got to give Eddie Howe so much credit for making that play because, in a sense, you can turn around and say, "Well, Joe Linton's worked hard," but you've got to have a manager who obviously sees something in a player and brings the best out of him. So, for me, Eddie Howe, I think he's done a fantastic job. I can't wait to see what he does next season because I presume they'll have some additions. So it's going to be really exciting to see what he does next season.
No, good pick, good pick. Uwais.
Yeah, that is a really good pick. And just on a side note, I do wonder what would have happened. Like I said, if Gareth Southgate had walked away after the World Cup, I really do think he would have been the FA's first choice to take over the England team. And I don't think he would have been able to turn it down, to be honest. I think he would have moved on. No, brilliant choice. The manager one was difficult. There's various reasons. I mean, Guardiola's potentially on course for a treble. Arteta's obviously surprised many by mounting a title challenge this season and clearly developed Arsenal to a point where they can challenge Eric Ten Hag's first season, one trophy, one final, and I think they've stabilized themselves clearly at developing an identity, a way of playing. Marco Silva, again, great job at Fulham, not to be in the relegation hunt all season. That speaks volumes for his credentials. And there's a few others, again, that I'm missing. Obviously, you mentioned Eddie Howe. For me, it's Gary O'Neill. I thought long and hard about it. I think Bournemouth were pretty much everyone's stick-ons to get relegated. And if you think about the first 4 games of the season when Scott Parker was in charge, I mean, they had some tough games, Arsenal, Liverpool, City losing all 3. And then he got sacked on the back of that. You remember the famous stiffy at Anfield, unfortunately, when Klopp went over to kind of console him even during the game. I remember that image vividly. And obviously, Gary O'Neill got brought in after that. He's got 36 points from 29 games. That's going to be enough to see Bournemouth safe. And I think there's something about him. I like how he conducts himself. He was asked a question after Arsenal scored that 97th minute winner about some of the celebrations, which were clearly, quite, I want to say aggressive, but you can imagine it's a 97th minute winner. And he said, look, at the end of the day, they scored a 97th minute. I get it. No sour grapes, just dealt with it, handled it with class, with grace. Things like that do matter to me. And I think just in terms of the way his team's playing, it's like his identity is imprinted on that team. You can see Lerma, Billing, Gotara, Solanke, even Christie. I mean, he's getting a real tune out of those players, Tavernier. And they, again, if I've not checked the form table, we've discussed this offline, but if you just look at their last kind of 13 to 15 games. They're a mid-table team in
Absolutely.
terms of the output that they've generated. So I think, given the expectations at the start of the season, and given how everyone would have seen Bournemouth, I think he's done a fantastic job, and he's my manager of the season.
That's an interesting one. That is a very interesting one, actually. You bring up good points. I'm not sure I'm not sure he makes manager of the season, but I mean, he's a candidate for sure. For sure, he's a candidate. But
Oh,
no,
just before you go, if Sam Allardyce keeps Leeds up, we'll revisit this conversation.
Yeah.
No, yeah. For me, I think I'm gonna go. It was a tough one, this, because there's been quite a few managers that have absolutely stepped to the plate. I think Unai Emery at Villa, since coming in, has been electric. He's done an incredible job. Villa are in the they probably won't get top four, but the fact that they're even in the hunt for it is incredible, given how they were, um, how badly they were doing with Gerrard. So Unai Emery is was a good shout. Not the guy I went with. It was between two men. The two men being Roberto De Zerbi and Eddie Howe. And I thought this one was unbelievably tough, because what De Zerbi's done with Brighton, especially once Potter left, I think a few people were very skeptical that Brighton could keep up the football they were playing, and maybe they didn't know whether De Zerbi was that man. I know there was Graham Souness going off on him, whether he had the credentials to even take on the job. But my God, since he's took the job, he's been on fire. Me saying all this is actually making me want to change my mind, because my answer was Eddie Howe. But this is me saying this out loud is now.
This is like your Vidic Ferdinand
scenario
all over again.
It's very difficult.
But I suppose he picked up a side, though, didn't he? I mean, it's in a sense he picked up a side that was the seeds were sown. They were doing okay, so in a sense he's taken them perhaps to a different level, but they were
taking them to a different level, man.
But they were doing okay. I mean, I think when Owen talked about Gary O'Neill, he took a side that was, I think, destined for relegation. So he completely transformed it. But I think for me,
agreed. No, but the level he's taken Brighton to, and if I'm being honest, I'm a United fan, but I'll be completely honest, they could have easily won that Carabao Cup final, and if they did, this would be a shoo-in. But I think I'm going to give it Eddie Howe as well, much like Ayub. Eddie Howe, the job he's done is nothing short of stellar. Like he said, if you look at that Newcastle team on paper, there aren't any, what I'd say, superstars on there. Yeah. There really isn't. I think they've made shrewd signings. Kieran Trippier at right back, Sven Botman at centre back. You get in some class like Alexander Isak as well. Even though he's not been as available as probably hope, he's definitely shown his worth. And then he's improved players like Almiron, players like Joel Linton. I think it's incredible, honestly. He was one of them. It'd be very easy to say Newcastle should just axe him and get a top manager in, given now that they've got Saudi backing, but he's proved everyone wrong in that regard. And I've always been a fan of him, given what he did with Bournemouth as well. The way he brought them up into the Premier League. He had one bad season with them when they got relegated. But aside from that, he's always shown he was a quality manager. I think this season, the fact that they've not tailed off yet in that top four race, and they're like playing with so much confidence. They're not like sneaking wins. They're dominating their games, absolutely dominating and winning 3-4 goals. So unbelievably impressive. I think Eddie Howe's my manager of the season, gents.
And this is why you give Eddie Howe immense credit, because to your point, Badge, not only have they not tailed off, and if you remember, they went through a few games where they drew a few because they were so kind of insistent on a solid defense and keep a solid base, but they were getting a few too many draws. They weren't able to convert those into wins. Otherwise, they could have even been closer to the top two, one could argue, because they had that little run where they just kept drawing games. They just couldn't break the stalemates in games. But to your point, if anything, they've got stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's a sign of a great manager, because their football has now developed to the point where they they look just as likely to win games away from home than they are at home, and they are absolutely putting a few past some teams. Again, sign of an identity kind of forming where players know what they're doing, where to be. So no, that's a good shout. The only other point I would mention on Unai Emery, to your point, Badge, another great shout, him and De Zerbi, but Unai Emery, Gerrard, when he got sacked, Villa were just above the relegation zone on goals scored. So in terms of where he's taken them, a huge leap. Yeah.
Incredible job from him. And had he come earlier, I'd probably even consider giving it to him. Pause. And Roberto De Zerbi as well. But yeah, man, the season. Oh, I'm glad we're kind of aligned on that. Now from individual awards, we're moving on into the team of the season. Now,
are we not going to do player of the season?
Oh snap! That's foregone conclusion.
It's a short segment.
Yeah.
Oh
but
yeah,
I think we should have the same player. I think anybody who tries to be controversial, I'm not having that at all.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go first and say Kevin De Bruyne is the player of the season for me. Erling Haaland is the easy pick here, and understandably so. His goal scoring has been absolutely incredible, but without Kevin De Bruyne, he don't score half of those goals.
But I'm not having that. The thing is,
I'm not having that at all, Bash.
By definition, he scored more than half the goals. De Bruyne's got 16 assists, and Haaland's got 34 goals. And if my maths serves me correct, that's more than 50%. But carry on, Badge. It's okay.
I just didn't want to pick Haaland. No, but honestly, Kevin De Bruyne has been incredible. He is the heart and soul of that City team. No matter what you say, when that guy's not there, it's a different side altogether. But I mean, Haaland's Haaland, isn't it? Fair play. I'll give you the floor, Judge, and you can rave about him.
Right. The best thing to come out of Leeds, Haaland. So it's my one sort of clamour of hope about Leeds. It's they say, I mean, strikers say that one of the or in football, one of the hardest things to do is score goals. That's what they say. This man, he scores goals for fun. There was always that question mark whether he was able to. I mean, he was always going to score goals. I don't think there was any question he was going to score goals. But perhaps the Premier League would have been a little bit tougher for him to score as many goals as he's done previously. He's been exceptional, albeit he's playing for an exceptional side with exceptional players. But he's doing something which is the hardest thing to do in football. He's doing it with considerable ease. How can you not say that he's the player of the season? So for me, without a shadow of a doubt, the player of the season is Leeds-born Erling Haaland.
I like how Badge says he would be the popular choice. No, Badge should just be the right choice. There is a difference. I mean, Erling Haaland's going to win Player of the Season. He's going to win the PFA Player of the Year. He's going to win any other award, the individual award. And at the 25-game mark, I genuinely thought it was still yet to be decided. If you remember, Badge, we discussed this offline. I thought there were some others in the running, but right now, in terms of how he's kicked on, 34 Premier League goals, he may well break the individual record, goals in an individual season. If he sticks around at Man City long enough, which I'm not sure he will, who knows, heck, the Shearer record might be in doubt, but that's a long way away, or the Harry Kane record by that time. But no, I mean, in terms of his contribution, people forget he's also got 7 assists, which actually matches the number of goals Kevin De Bruyne has got. But yeah, incredible player.
Don't disrespect Kevin De Bruyne, please.
No, I'm not disrespecting.
I'm backing him so much, but here we are.
Hang on, I was waxing lyrical about him last week when he put a few past Arsenal. Look, no, but Erling Haaland's the pick, isn't he? I mean, these are numbers that we've not seen before, and yes, we have for a long time, and he's got an unbelievable supporting cast. Of course, Grealish, as you mentioned, has really come into his own post World Cup. De Bruyne is De Bruyne. We know what he represents. Just the whole team is geared, but he's added a different dimension. And if he can help them deliver the Champions League this season, of course, that's going to make it all the worthwhile. But unbelievable player, immense talent. Definitely one of the best strikers in Europe. That just goes without saying. But he's the player of the season, and he'll win that award for sure.
Sorry, I'm tailing off a bit here, but humor me for a second. If City win the Champions League, does he win Ballon d'Or?
Who wins the Ballon d'Or award? It's
some. I actually don't know. You know,
it's a good shout. Listen, I don't think he's the best.
Messi.
I don't think he's the best player in the world. The best player in the world is Kylian
For that,
Mbappe.
no, but it's for that season, isn't it? Is he the best player in the world for that season?
Yeah, and that's why what I mean is about the Ballon d'Or is it's a prestigious title, the most prestigious individual
it's
awards.
hokey at the best of times, but you know, yeah, I think if you score the goals he scored, you get the assists he's got, and then win the league and win the Champions League. Yeah, I mean, what else can he bloody do? What else can he do?
It will be a travesty if he doesn't.
Yeah, but you
Because
know
exactly what you've just said. Because as a striker, he's scoring goals. That's his job, and he assists as well. He's winning things as well. So if he does win the Champions League, they'll win the league. They might win the FA Cup as well. So
there are a lot of Messi worshippers out there, though. That's what I'm. I think because of the World Cup, listen. Well, in my opinion, he wasn't even the best player at that tournament. Yeah, I think Kylian Mbappe was robbed. Again, I'm tailing off, but the point is, he should win the Ballon d'Or. Surely.
I am desperate that he wins. Leeds born.
No,
I just want to hear that. No. Leeds born. Erling Haaland wins the Ballon d'Or.
I'm not sure that's how they.
That's how they.
How they're gonna introduce him at the award ceremony. No, it's a good shout. I mean, the Ballon d'Or is also about moments, right? Delivering moments, and I think if he can deliver a few more moments in the Champions League semi-finals, maybe in the final if they get through, then I think it's a very good shout. And
you think Messi should get it, shouldn't it?
For me, the Ballon d'Or is an unusual award, right? I think to myself, the unofficial award about who's the best player in the world, and the best player in the world is Kylian Mbappe. So for me, it's like the Ballon d'Or. Fine, to your point, there's politics involved, whatever it might be, the way people vote. But I'd like to think there's a consensus on this group, at least, that Mbappe is the best player in the world.
No.
I refuse to accept that.
No.
Anybody playing in the French league, I refuse to accept that. No.
But just to confirm, his uncle on his mum's side was born in Leeds. Just for your information.
Well, no, but seriously, French league, no, I'm not having that at all.
Yeah.
I think that's a
Mickey Mouse league. But
yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
Apologies
to our French viewers.
Yeah, like Mbappe hasn't delivered in the Champions League and in World Cup finals. But okay,
sorry. So, has he? Well, when it mattered, has he delivered to PSG in the Champions League? No, he hasn't. Does he have a Champions League to his name? No, he doesn't.
This is ridiculous. I mean, the man's won a World Cup and he scored a hat trick in another one. But hey, okay, fine. I mean, we keep moving the goalposts. Carry on. Come on.